Obi Martin has only arrived at Manchester United in the last week or two and is already impressing coaches like Sekou Kone. Manchester United have a plan to integrate him so he fully settles in and see him as someone that gets potential first team minutes. INEOS have had contact with Thomas Tuchel, but they're sticking with Ten Hag as of now. But a shock sacking for Ten Hag could be on the cards. INEOS don't want there to be loads of publicity that they're going to sack Ten Hag. They just want to sort of do it, get it done. They don't want everyone going, are they going to sack Ten Hag? Are they not going to sack Ten Hag? If they sack Ten Hag, it could come at quite a surprising time. Rumours of Casemiro leaving in January, INEOS looking to offload him. We also know we're looking at left back in January and a few other stories. So hello and welcome back to Alice Talks Football and welcome back to a 10-minute Manchester United news roundup. Please do go ahead and hit that like button if you have not already. And of course, subscribe down below to Manchester United if you're new. Let's get into all the stories, starting with Obi Martins. Now, this guy broke records. He got like 35 goal contributions in 18 games at age 16 in under 18s level. He was a monster, and because he left Arsenal for Manchester United, loads of Arsenal fans then started making up loads of crap that Man United offered him this money and that money. In fact, he just left Arsenal for United because we have a better academy development pathway, and he was a Manchester United fan, so you can't blame him for that. Now, there's videos and stuff going around on Twitter of him basically in training, and he's looking really sharp, he's looking really good, and we've got a bit of insight coming out into United's plans for Sekou, so for Obi Martin. This is the same source that said we have plans for Sekou Kone. We want to integrate him in, and maybe after Christmas, we could potentially see some minutes, and he could be fast-tracked into the first team if his impressive performances continue. Similar has been said with Obi Martin. It's been said United will be patient with Chido Obi Martin. He has only been at training Carrington for a few weeks and will not be rushed to play a competitive fixture for the academy with his long-term development in line. So, mind, he's just arrived. He hasn't played a fixture for academy yet because they need to get him out of the scratch. He's not played in like 4 months because of this. Took so long to sort, and they want his fitness, they want him to be ready. They're going to throw him in an academy game when they're 100% sure he's ready so he can start with a bang, get the confidence up as well. United will allow Obi Martin to get his fitness up to speed and settle into his new environment before unleashing him into academy game. Very similar to the Sekou Kone situation. We know that both coaches at United have been so impressed with what they're seeing with Obi Martin and Sekou Kone. They think, wow, these are some real talents, but they're being very careful about how they use them. And they're two players that sort of are expected to potentially get first team minutes the back end of this season, pre-season, next season, if it continues. Obi Martin signed his contract at United because he's told he's third choice after Xerxes and Højlund, assuming he gets settled in as well. But he's probably likely going to overtake Wheatley and Bien Chiri. That's the level of talent he is. And Wheatley and Bien Chiri are both top-level talents, but he's likely to overtake them. Now, I want to talk a little bit about transfer news before we get into the Tuchel Ten Hag news, because I feel like we talk about Tuchel Ten Hag for ages. And obviously, one thing we do know is INEOS did want to offload Casemiro in the summer. Doesn't take a genius to figure that out. Doesn't take a genius to tell you that. INEOS wanted to offload Casemiro in the summer. John Murta, when he was still employed in March of last year, actually went and basically to Saudi to try and get a move. And there was a feeling that Casemiro to Saudi was going to happen. Man United believed that was going to happen. I think Casemiro was open to it. His agent sort of thought he'd maybe sorted a move. This was sort of back in sort of the March time. And then Saudi sort of looked at the package, looked at his form, looked at how United were kind of eager to sell and backed away from Casemiro. So then United stuck with Casemiro, but the plan was that he would go to Saudi and that they bring someone else in. We know that INEOS, and Ratcliffe, before he was even United owner, actually said that we shouldn't have spent 70 million on the Casemiro. We know that INEOS weren't the biggest admirers of Casemiro, and he's even started to sort of be dropped by Ten Hag. He was playing him every game when he was poor. Ten Hag started to drop Casemiro due to his poor form. So INEOS do want probably Casemiro out. It's just how easy would it be to sell Casemiro because of the wages he's on. Former scout Brown told Football Insider that I'm told that they'll look to cash in on Casemiro as soon as they can on January 1st if possible. He's been benched because he hasn't been performing and can't do it anymore. I'm sure they would have loved to offload him if they could get him out of the squad and off the wage bill, which would allow them to spend more money. One of the reasons Varane went, even though we got no money for him, was to get him off the wage bill. And maybe that was the right decision because he's now had to retire because of his injury issues. And Varane actually had a good season, unlike Casemiro last year when he played. But Casemiro has been poor for a year. He's on even higher wages than Rafael Varane. And United just want to get Casemiro off. They want to get him offloaded. They want to get him off the wage bill, which is absolutely fair enough. But if we do sell Casemiro in January, we'll need a replacement. For me, Anthony Robinson is who I'd sign in January. And then if we sell Casemiro, we need a replacement. And I want a replacement that is also good on the ball, because I think there's limitations there. Build up. I'd like Stiller. I like Adam Morton, but he's not had the best starts of the season. I'd probably look at Stiller. I like Supermendy, but he's been linked to City and Liverpool in January, so I don't think there's any chance of that. So let's talk about the manager news, the Tuchel news, the stories going about. Manchester United's hierarchies held talks over the future of Erik ten Hag this week and ultimately decided not to sack him, as they couldn't reach a consensus over a decision and couldn't agree who would succeed the head coach. So Man United hierarchy had a meeting about ten Hag's future. Dan Ashworth, no Brado probably said, let's not sack him because we can't agree who will be the next United coach. They probably looked at the price. They probably looked that he hadn't been here long, how much they just spent on him in the summer, the coach that available, which they could have brought in the summer, then opted to pick ten Hag over, and they probably decided, let's just give it a few games. But we know if he is sat, Ratcliffe wants Thomas Tuchel, and they could get Thomas Tuchel, because as we said yesterday, Thomas Tuchel was like 99% close to joining United, and he pulled out at the final moment. United chose to sack ten Hag and get Thomas Tuchel in. Thomas Tuchel rejected us. It was said, if Erik ten Hag is sacked by Manchester United, Thomas Tuchel will be one of the top candidates to replace him. The contact is there. Tuchel will definitely want the United job after having some time off. And this has been said by, buy-in sources. This is really good sources out in Germany. If ten Hag sat, Tuchel will be the top candidate to replace him. The contact is there. So INEOS have still had contact with Tuchel, and Tuchel want the United job. Now, apparently the only reason Tuchel rejected us in the summer is because we didn't have Dan Ashworth and Vivel in place, and they didn't know if they were going to get Dan Ashworth and Vivel in place. And Thomas Tuchel was saying, I refuse to work with people that aren't, at the top. They aren't professional, like he did at Bayern, like he did at Chelsea, which cost him his job. He wants to make sure he's got Dan Ashworth and that support in place. But now that Dan Ashworth's here, Tuchel would jump at the opportunity for United job should ten Hag be sacked, apparently. So this could be massively one to watch. And also, apparently, we've had contact with Tuchel. Tuchel was discussed with the United hierarchy on the meeting on Tuesday. We know that they're a big fan of him. And it was also said that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer rejected the chance to become the Denmark national team manager because he's in talks with a major club. Then people start saying he was in talks with United to come in and be interim. Not true. Ole's not coming back to United. I know that for a fact. Apparently, he's in talks with Anderlecht, is what I heard. Anyway, continuing on, the Muppeteers went on the United View and they did their own YouTube show, and they said a few bits of information regarding INEOS and the manager situation. They said, if a change is made, James thinks it'll be more out of the blue. INEOS didn't like how the public situation was during the summer. So if a change is made of manager, it might just come out of the blue. It might be like in 3 weeks' time, they're just, ten Hag sat. Boom, done. Boom. Like shock sacking, maybe a shock sacking rather than speculation. Boom, you know what? We've had 4 bad games after international break. He's lost us one badly. Boom, he's got to go. Let's get Tuchel and bish bash boss. They might do that. Sir Jim will listen to Ashworth's recommendations, and it is up to Dan Ashworth whether to pull the trigger on ten Hag. Now we know from Graham Potter, we know from people that Ashworth's worked under, he does like to give his manager time to turn it around. He doesn't want to be someone that sacks managers multiple times. He likes to give time. But we know that Dan Ashworth isn't fully convinced on ten Hag, and it wasn't his decision to keep ten Hag. He wasn't here when United made the decision to keep ten Hag. It was also said the pressure is there on ten Hag, but the club haven't clarified anything. They doesn't think INEOS are going to make a change this early on. I think the earliest they make the change is November, and they think a deal to appoint Tuchel was very close in the summer, and Sir Jim wants Tuchel. We know that from the Muppeteers and many sources. The Muppeteers also added that individuals at United wanted to give ten Hag time, that INEOS and Sir Jim would rather make the change sooner rather than later, but I think Ashworth and Barada want to give him time, and it is shocking to the owners as to how bad it is. So the owners don't rate ten Hag. Ratcliffe doesn't rate ten Hag, but they discussed to give him a little bit more time. They discussed in the meeting what they could do now versus the long term. And I think the managers that INEOS probably want in are probably not available to the summer. In my opinion, I think INEOS probably want McKenna or Alonso, who I don't think we'd get, or a manager, but that manager, let's say INEOS would want to bring in, isn't available to the summer. So INEOS is thinking, well, if we bring Tuchel in, we can't get this guy in the summer. Do we hold it out, see if he can turn around and get this guy in the summer? Do we do Ruben Nistelrooy as interim? They're probably discussing those things. It was said that Thomas Tuchel was discussed during the meeting, and INEOS don't want somebody to interfere with transfer business. The initial inclination about Tuchel is that everyone isn't 100% sure about his long-term capabilities. It's up to Barada and Ashworth. I think with Tuchel, he can short-term get a tune out of the squad, but he's not a long-term manager. He does fall out with the board. Both are leaning towards giving ten Hag more time. They will be assessing things. INEOS wants someone with experience at a top club. So I think, to be honest, they'll be assessing things. I think in November, he could be like Ollie. Ollie got the October international break after a shocking start to the season. He didn't get past November. I think it's like Ollie, but he's got maybe 5 games in him, and INEOS might just say, you know what, this isn't working, and they pull the trigger. I think Eric Ten Hag knows he's got to do something different. He knows he's got to change something. We'll see what happens. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching today's video. Please do hit the like button. Of course, subscribe down below if you're new. See you next time. Bye.